The ghost of the past almost killed me in a cab. The ghost of the present basically kicked my ass. And the ghost of the future, well, before you ask, find out in this episode of Backlit Cinema, the podcast. My name is Zoe, that's spelled Z-O or Z to the O, for those of you outside of the U.S. It's the 127th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. We watch movies of yesteryears that I loved when I was growing up in the 1900s. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell that heartless, high-ranking television executive about Backlit Cinema, the podcast. So, as promised, ladies and gentlemen, I have for you another very special guest. My next guest is setting the podcast world on fire with his popular show, featuring incredible guests, including filmmakers and musicians. They also talk about the culture of TV and movies and get into the details of the creators of classic television. Ladies and gentlemen and people throughout the spectrum, I present Cam Sully.
Thank you ever so much, my guy. And we were previously talking superhero movies. You invited me on. This will be fun.
Yeah, that is correct. And now, I was on your show. We talked about superhero movies, and we talked about some movies that were, they were like just not the typical, campy, right. not the typical fare. Not from the. Some of the movies weren't from the two major studios or whatever. We kind of got into the nitty gritty of superhero movies. And now I have you on my show, and we're going to talk about something entirely different. But before we get into the subject matter, I have to ask you, a couple questions to get into your personal business and some of your professional business. And these are some basic questions. My audience knows I'm a basic man. So let's get into it. So if you weren't podcasting, what would you do? So what are some of the other interesting things? What are your other creative outlets that you'd probably be getting into if you weren't podcasting?
I've done indie filmmaking. I've done valet of all crazy hats that I've worn. I'm currently working a security job. If I didn't have any of that, I would probably do some other kind of entertainment thing, maybe help out some music artists. I'd like to actually get back to doing some music video directing.
Yeah, I take it that working a security job is not your passion.
It's not, but surprisingly, it doesn't bother me.
Right. I've worked security. There was a time I spent like a 10-year period working security, and I had some interesting times. It's fun when you have the job where you kind of get blamed for stuff that you had no control over, or can't. It's like basically
it does depend on the manager. There are some really annoying managers.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically being blamed for stuff you have no control over. But yeah, security is fun. Moving right along. So. On the Jacked Up Review show, I get a sense that there's more than just you on the show. Do you have other hosts on the show?
I do. I have John. I also have JJ and Tom, who are very big retro guys. If you want to go way deeper into the movie and TV rabbit hole, they're your guys to look out for. We always try to keep it light, and if we get off topic, it's all in good fun, as opposed to, hey, you really confused everybody.
Right. So, when you do the show, is like I just listened to an episode where you had what's his name? I done forgot his name. I hate it when this happened. It was Chris from the Chris and Christine show. He also has podcasting audio.
Yeah.
So that was you interviewing him?
Yeah. Twitter's been a great help at just finding us all these other personas where it's like, man, where have you guys been?
Right.
Dynamite.
Yeah. It's when you start to kind of get into looking for guests or what idea, it's amazing the people that you can find. There's like so many people out there that have such varied experiences that you can get them to share with people, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
we just interviewed Jay Uger from the Young Turks, who's now presidential candidate. So
that's a huge get right there.
You pretty much got to sign up to all the emails and see when these guys even want to do a PR thing. You know, it's interesting how sometimes they come to you and you're like, whoa. You know, there's been times where you got to be polite, where you're like, hey, thanks for the screener, but it's not my kind of thing I want to watch, you know. But then there's other times where it's like, okay, you know what? Let's have you on. We've encountered your work in some capacity, and I want to give you a voice.
Right. Yeah. When people reach out to me, or I reach out to them and they've got like a project, I don't do many interviews where people are promoting their products, at least not right now. But
it is a lot.
yeah. Like movies.
Then they want it the next week, and you're like, I got too much stuff in the can for next week.
Right. But so I've done that, and that's pretty interesting. But it's like, for like you, because I watched the Young Turks, and so I'm familiar with the content and whatnot, but they're like highly political, so I don't know if that would work for this show. Like, if he came and was like, yeah, I'd really like to be on the show, I was like, well, you want to talk about a movie or something? Because
sure.
I'm not really going to get into the politics right now. I mean, I'm more political on like the socials than I am on the podcast.
No, I know what you mean. There's a time for everything, and it does get interesting how you see some people saying, hey, I don't do this, but I do that. I'm like, okay, well,
right.
I'm confused.
Well, seeing as how this is a movie podcast, what's like your favorite movie genre that you like to get into?
It actually really depends on the day. I would say probably mystery now. There's nothing better than seeing a very well thought out, like psychological kind of cat and mouse thing. You know, I would watch every other action, sci-fi, or horror movie, but it was interesting how mystery can be a little less divisive. Like, if you don't care for the final plot twist, everyone's pretty cool. It's not really as heated as action, where people are going, oh, that was awesome, and you're going, that was lame. Or like horror, where you're like, well, it just disturbed me, but it didn't make any sense. You know, it's interesting how if you just do mystery, it can be just take it or leave it. People are cool with it.
All right. I guess the fandom for stuff like mysteries are probably not as hype. There's not like a hype, as much hype over something like Glass Onions. Yeah, like Glass Onion, or the dude with the mustache. There's not as much hype.
Glass Onion. Right. If you watch something like Seven or Prisoners, if you like it, people are gonna go, "Oh, awesome! It gave me nightmares too." If you don't care for it, people are like, "Yeah, I kind of found it boring too. I didn't understand it."
All right, so I'm going to leave, but one more question.
Oh my God, there's more.
When people talk about mysteries, I always think about that guy. He's always asking one more question. So
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, no, not him. Do you know?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. But you know the guy I'm talking about. I can't think of his name right now. Everybody knows, right? Everybody's screaming his name. The
famous interviewer.
No, not the famous. He was a detective. He was a TV detective, and he's questioning people.
Columbo.
Yeah, Columbo. Why did I forget that? I hate it when that happens.
One more question.
It's like,
here.
Yeah, one more question. All right, so moving right along. So, why don't you plug your show and your socials? Let people know where they can find the Jacked Up Review Show podcast.
JURS is on just about every platform: Anchor, Spotify, Podbean, and we try to have a variety, anything from giving you expose on a video game franchise, or and lately we've been getting into comics based on movies and TV, and that's kind of been a fun rabbit hole to dig through. We like just kind of validating everybody, giving them a sense of forgotten treasures, as well as constructive critique on whether people are making good use of a merchandise or a license. You know, we try to have something for everybody. That if we didn't get to it now, we'll probably get to it later. But we're there on the socials, down to collaborate, talk about fun stuff.
Right. I'll have all of your your links would be in the show notes.
Yes.
That's the important thing, because I know you're
not the Discord.
You're probably right. You're probably not writing this stuff down while you're driving in the car. So hopefully there will be some links in the show notes. As long as you're not listening to something like Audible, because Audible they're kind of funny with the show notes. So use a proper podcast app where they have clickable links. So moving right along, why don't you tell the people the name of the movie that we had just watched?
Good old Scrooged.
Scrooged. Cam, tell some of the. What am I saying? I say I'm all kerfuffled now. I was trying to say tell some of the people, but it's not some people. I want you to tell all the people. Tell the people about Scrooge.
It's basically Bill Murray and Richard Donner's answer to all the different Frank Capra, morality tales.
Right.
Holiday season. It's interesting how it's been beloved by some and hated by others. And the plot follows on Christmas Eve, a senior exec of the IBC TV network are in the improbable position of trying to please their mean, cantankerous, and spiteful boss named Frank Cross. The ghost of Lou Hayward, Frank's mentor, who is since deceased, visits him to issue a warning. The warning is that his mean ways will lead to the ruin of his life and everyone around him. And in order to encourage Frank to abandon his awful path, Lou invites the free spirits of Christmas one at a time to have a fireside chat with him.
Yeah. It's a classic version of A Christmas Carol. Is it A Christmas Carol?
Right.
Yeah.
That, It's a Wonderful Life. A lot of the same kind of ingredients.
Right. But it's
that whole...
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a morality tale, but it's
every cartoon show has done a version of this.
Right. I think this is my favorite version of an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. As far as a wildly different version of, like, I like the classic versions, like the one with what's his name? George C. Is it George C. Darn, I can't remember his name.
It might be a George C. Scott one.
Yeah, George C. Scott, that's his name. So I like that George C. Scott version. And then there's an earlier version, I think that came out in the 1960s, or it may have been earlier, maybe the 1930s that I used to watch all the time. And that that one was called Scrooge. And then later on, they kind of renamed it to A Christmas Carol. So, and that's a black and white one. That was one I used to watch all the time. So I like the classic versions of A Christmas Carol, but I also like this version because it's so wildly different from all the other versions before. They took a lot of license when they made this movie. So this movie was released November 23rd, 1988, produced by Paramount Pictures and Mirage Productions. It grossed over $60 million in the US and Canada on a reported budget of $32 million. I also read somewhere that I think internationally it made like around $40 million. But I've only found one source for that. But because it's like, if you look at the numbers right now, 60 million from 32 million, that makes it look like a flop. That makes it look like it just barely, it's not even really breaking even, right? It's just barely, or you might say it's barely breaking even. But if you add a $40 million overseas, then that would bring it into profitability, but not necessarily a hit.
It is a quandary. I think it made decent money. It's just people didn't like it at the time, so that kind of took a bigger impact.
Right. I don't know. It's like I never got around to seeing it until I think I watched it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, oh, because I had always been wanting to watch the movie, so I finally got to watch it.
Same.
Like, 2 or 3 years ago.
It was another Murray film that escaped me. I've seen so many of his work, but
and so I was like,
even though he's still funny and mean, somehow people just thought it was too cruel and just didn't want to check it out, even though it kind of makes you wonder, why was it okay the first 2 times and this third time wasn't the charm?
I think what it just needed is something that needed to grow on people. I guess it was such a different adaptation that it needed to grow on people. And so and if you look at that, like if you adjust it for inflation, so 60 million becomes 155 million. That's in today's dollars, and 32 million becomes 83 million in today's dollars, just for context. So this movie it's just packed with stars. It's packed with stars and it's packed with cameos. So I'm going to get us started to talk about the star of the movie, Bill Murray, played Francis Xavier Frank Cross. You may have also seen him in The Jungle Book from 2016, Zombieland, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and he is going to be appearing in Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. I think what is third or fourth Ghostbuster movie, which is fine.
It'd be about the fifth, actually.
Yeah. I know it was somewhere around there. I think he probably even did the voices for the video game. So yeah,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But
He did.
yeah, he's also done a lot of classic movies. But I just talked about some of the recent works that he's done. So yeah, I've always liked Frank Murray. When I watched this movie, I didn't realize how tall he was. Because it's like when you watch Ghostbusters, it's like my main point of reference. He seems short, and the only reason he seems short is because Harold Ramis is so tall. Like Harold Ramis is super tall, and so he makes everybody look short. And I'm thinking that Bill Murray is average height, because like he would be as tall as me. But then when you look at this movie, he's basically towering over everybody. There are a few people that come up to his height. So actually even I think in Ghostbusters, even Sigourney Weaver looks like she's taller than he is.
She is a very tall person.
Yeah,
apparently.
she's very tall. So either she's taller or she's about the same height. So when you look at Scrooged, everybody is short. I was like, oh goodness, he must be actually be a tall person. And I looked it up. He's like 6'2". I was like, yeah, that's taller than average. So who's next on the roster?
Oh, we got Karen Allen, best known as Marion in the Indiana Jones saga. You might also know her from Starman and Malcolm X.
Right. Yeah, it's funny, right? Because in this movie, she plays Claire Phillips, but I did not recognize her, and I should have. Like, because Indiana Jones was like one of my favorite movies.
Fine, man. You know,
right. I've seen all of these movies, and I guess she's such a regular looking person. That's the reason I didn't recognize her, because she is so. I mean, she's beautiful, but she's like regular beautiful. She's literally the girl next door. It's not like she's like a super glamorous person. So I think that's probably, like, if it were Cher, I would recognize Cher, but for some reason,
right,
I didn't realize that Karen Allen had been in so many movies. But yeah, and there she is. So
it's also interesting how sometimes just the makeup and how they're walking in proportion to everything, you don't recognize them either.
Yeah, that acting really comes into play when it comes to how you recognize somebody. So the next star is John Forsythe, and he played Lew Hayward. You may have recognized him as the voice on Charlie's Angels 2000, or the original voice of Charlie in the original Charlie's Angels TV show. He's also been in Cold Blood and The Trouble with Harry. Those are some classic movies from a bygone era, like before my time, actually.
And in all fairness, these are movies that, you know, not everyone's gonna like have in their back catalog.
Right. Yeah, you have to be. It's like I've only known John Forsythe as an elder gentleman, and most of his work is in television. Like when I do the show, because this is a movie podcast, I try to get their movie credits. And but like if you look at John's IMDb, it's packed with stuff. Like he's a longtime soap opera star. He's been on a bunch of TV shows, either single episodes where he's a guest, or he's been on shows where he's been on like he's a star of that show or a supporting cast member of that particular show. It's stacked with TV shows. And so people, they know who John Forsythe is. It's like it seems like, but it's like in this movie, he's got a bunch of makeup on, so probably won't recognize him except through his voice. So who's the next person on the list?
Oh my word. We got John Glover as Bryce Cummings. You might know him as the evil executive in Gremlins 2. Payback with Mel Gibson. John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. And numerous roles in Joel Schumacher's Batman films, as well as the bad guy in Smallville.
Right. Yeah, he's that's where I recognize him from, and he plays like the perfect sleazebag. Just an incredible job.
When is he ever a nice guy, man?
He's never nice. He's never nice. Up next is Bobcat Goldthwait. He plays Elliot Loudermilk and you may have seen him or heard him in Hercules from 1997, Police Academy 2, Their First Assignment, and Shakes the Clown, his own movie.
Yep.
So here's the thing. I remember him as a comedian, as a stand-up comedian. And what's peculiar about him is that in a lot of his earlier roles, he's just doing his act, but he's doing the voice of his act. So like in the Police Academy, he's doing his act in a Police Academy. And then in this movie, he's doing his voice, because that's not how he normally talks. It's not, if you hear him on an interview,
it's very subtle compared to usual.
Right. So if you see him in a different movie, or if you see him in a talk show, or there's Wait, Don't Tell Me is a game show that I listen to from NPR, where he's a guest. He talks like a regular person, but in this movie, he's doing the voice from his act, and you would not recognize him had he not been doing his voice.
Yeah, he's not dressed up in his usual wacky.
He's an incredible personality. So who's the next person?
Oh my word, we got none other than David Johansen, also known as Buster Poindexter. He plays the ghost of Christmas Past. You might know him from the wacky sci-fi movie Freejacked, the crime comedy Married to the Mob, and Let It Ride.
I only really remember him from that one song. He's a prolific musician. Like, he goes by, as a musician, he goes by his regular name, David Johansen, and he also goes by Buster Poindexter, but I only know him as Buster Poindexter from that one song he sang, right? That's all I know him from, but it's like, he's so impactful. When you see him, it's so impactful. He's so exciting that the image of him singing that song just kind of sticks with you. It sticks
so
on
wild.
your bones, right. You only need a little taste of Buster Poindexter. It's like, okay, I get it. I don't need to see him again. But he's a fascinating character. Who's next? An incredible comedic actress, Carol Kane. She plays the Ghost of Christmas Present. She's been in Migration, The Princess Bride, and The Pacifier. You know what I recently found out? That's her voice. That's her real voice. She's not doing an act. Because I saw her in an interview, I was like, oh, that's her voice. Because she's recently, her latest work is in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And I really like her on the show. And at first I was thinking, okay, she's doing the voice again. And then I saw her in an interview. I was like, oh my God, that's how she talk. I had the wrong idea about her the entire time. But it's always fun to see her. I loved her in The Princess Bride. And I think this movie is my favorite role for her.
Totally. Yeah. It's intense.
Yeah, it is. All right, now you can go. Now you can read.
Got another old timer. We got none other than Robert Mitchum, who, long time, hardworking actor since around the 40s, and you might know him from the noir Out of the Past, the 50s terror film Night of the Hunter, and both versions of Cape Fear.
Right. He plays, I don't remember him. He plays a character called Preston Winelander.
He's one of the other Zacks. Yeah, Preston.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally forget that he's in this each time. I'm
right.
Like, oh, that's right.
He didn't, for some reason, he didn't leave much of an impact on me, but probably because of the next actor.
He was getting up there.
Yeah. The next actor, Alfre Woodard, plays Grace Cooley. And I was like, it was funny, right? Because when she appeared on screen, I was like, that's what's her name. I was doing that for like a half an hour before I remembered what her name was, because that was bothering me. But yeah, Alfre Woodard is totally awesome. You may recognize her.
She's like the only normal person in this movie.
Right. You might recognize her from Star Trek First Contact, 12 Years a Slave, or Annabelle. She's been in a bunch of
get away from my son.
Right. She's been in a bunch of movies and TV shows, just chock full of talent and
dynamite.
She's had a storied career. So who's the final?
Lovely
actor?
gal.
Oh no, actually, it's not a final actor. It's a bunch of cameos. Who are some of the cameos?
Oh my goodness, we got Jamie Farr. We got game show host Robert Goulet. We got Buddy Hackett, John Houseman, Oh my word. The $1 Million Man himself, Lee Majors, and Mary Lou Retton. We got all kinds of bizarre. What a weird cast. That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
worked.
yeah. That was, and most of these people were playing themselves.
Right.
And what's funny is that what you call it, because like for example, Mary Lou Retton was playing Mary Lou Retton playing Tiny Tim. It was one of those deals, and it's just amazing how this film was put together.
Very meta.
Yeah, very meta. So it was, it's just bizarre. And with the inclusion of this expanded cameos in this movie, it makes the movie surreal. It makes it meta, like you said. I think that's one of the reasons I like it so much. It adds a certain je ne sais quoi, as they say. So so this beautiful beast, tell us who brought this beast of a movie to us.
Oh my word. It's Superman and Lethal Weapon franchise helmsman Richard Donner.
Absolutely.
You might know him also from 90s and 2000s movies like Timeline, Conspiracy Theory, Assassins with Antonio Banderas and Sylvester Stallone, and the remake of the TV show the same name, Maverick.
So have you seen any of these movies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Richard Donner was like a favorite. Like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing one of his movies on USA or TNT network.
Right. It's strange. I have huge holes in my Richard Donner watching. So the only
No, it's all good.
the only movies I've
Did
seen.
you see 16 Blocks by any chance?
No, didn't see that one either.
Oh,
I had, like I said, it's a huge hole. This is like the only movies I've seen are Superman and Timeline. So I've always wanted to see Conspiracy Theory, and I didn't get to see it. I always wanted to see Assassins and Maverick. I wanted to see these movies, just hadn't got around to see it. And looking at the list, I was like, oh, he and Mel Gibson apparently really got along. Mel Gibson is in a lot of these movies. So this movie was written by Mitch Glazer, Michael O'Donoghue, and Charles Dickens, obviously. So Glazer, he's done movies. Right. He's done movies like he's done. He's written The Recruits, Great Expectations from 1998, and Lost in Translations. O'Donoghue wrote Mr. Mike's Mondo Video and Gilda Live, which is a feature.
yep.
What do you call that? Comedy concert. But most of his work, like these two guys, they're basically Saturday Night Live writers, especially O'Donoghue. That's pretty much all he's written is for Saturday Night Live. Not a lot of huge, not a movie type writer. And then Dickens, obviously, this movie is based on A Christmas Carol and some other adapted works that Dickens has done. It's like I feel like probably all of his works have been adapted, but a lot of them, the more prominent ones, are like The Picture of Dorian Gray. They have a 2023 adaptation. Twist, which is a adaptation of Oliver Twist, and they got various Great Expectation TV adaptations. I didn't realize there were so many TV shows and movies based on Great Expectations. It's wild.
Totally. And it's just kind of interesting how you see these guys all evolving, and I think this is okay that it didn't do well at the time, because I think in hindsight it was inevitable. Like there was always going to be some movie that wasn't going to do as hot, and people just had to come around to it. I think a lot of people take stuff for granted. Hey, I'm hot as hell right now. I'm always going to have a hit, and it's like you can't hit it out of the park every time. But I think, like you say, it's a slow burn. So it's all these guys are experimenting. Like they were going to try and do something to keep it fresh and interesting eventually.
Right. And I think these are probably just some timeless stories that people like to retell. So I get it. I get it why they do it over, especially with A Christmas Carol. This is like everybody needs to take their shot at doing a new adaptation of it. And it seems like it's so easy to do because it's not like you have to shoot at a bunch of different locations, the sets for a type of movie or play or TV show for something like A Christmas Carol. They'd be easy to change over. You got people like Patrick Stewart. He used to do a one-man show based on a Christmas Carol. It's
Yes,
it's so
I saw that one.
it's so tempting to do the Christmas Carol. So
Might as well.
who did the music for this one?
Oh my God! It's Oingo Boingo himself, Danny Elfman.
Man, he's really a guy who does movies.
I didn't realize he had 141. I thought it was like 250.
Right. What are some of the movies that he's
So you listed the newer version of Doolittle, Doctor Strange 2, White Noise, sorry, Bloody Bridget, Men in Black. You might also know him from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man's, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Just around forever.
Do you have like a favorite that I hadn't listed or you hadn't mentioned already?
Oh man, he has so many underrated ones. I feel I recommend the Terminator Salvation one because even if you don't like the movie, like just the way that Foley is handled in that one is very interesting. Obviously, Burton's Batman, Darkman, A Simple Plan, but you might really dig Good Will Hunting.
Right. That's another movie I need to watch. Also, so I would say of all the Danny Elfman movies, I would go with Batman from 1989. That's my favorite one. And it's easy to say it's my favorite because a lot of the music that he had done after that movie feels derivative of that movie. Like it takes him a minute to kind of move away
Everybody borrows
from Batman. Well, everybody borrows from it. Like a lot of the Batman animated series, the theme for that show was based on this show, and a lot of Batman products.
That's right.
Or movies that came after, they referenced the Sam Raimi a lot of times. They referenced the Sam Raimi Batman by Danny Elfman. So I'm all
There's
confused.
even movies where I forget that
it's not Sam Raimi, it's Tim Burton. It's the Tim Burton Batman.
Either way, the two superhero favorites. But I even forget that he scored stuff like Hellboy 2, The Kingdom, Silver Linings Playbook. Freeway is a very wild score. But if you've ever seen Dolores Claiborne, The Wolfman, or Frighteners, or Dead Presidents, like that, again, it blows you away every time. You're like, that was him. Whoa. Okay.
Right. Yeah, he be getting it in, as we say in the streets. He getting it in. So that's it for the opening credits. And I have an announcement, and that announcement is that I have a newsletter out. Okay, I know. It's not like a weekly newsletter. It's barely a monthly newsletter, but when you do sign up for it, you'll get updated and information on who's coming on the show. You get some like feature, what do you call those things when you do profiles? That's the word I'm looking for. You get featured profiles. Right. You get featured profiles on past guests and future guests that will appear on the show. And you'll just have some artwork. I don't know what I'm going to put in this newsletter, but you'll get stuff. You get some information that you like. I'll even throw in some podcasting tips in the newsletter. But more importantly, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a chance to win the Felix the Cat t-shirt. And if you want to see what that looks like, it's at www.backlinkcinema.com. Go there for details. You'll be hitting the face when you go to the website. You'll be hitting the face with the pop-up that'll show you what the Felix the Cat t-shirt looks like. So you don't even have to go looking about on the website to find out what does the Felix the Cat shirt look like. You just go to the website, go to www.backlinkcinema.com, and you will be hit with a pop-up that will show you what the shirt look like. And when you see it, you're going to want it. You're going to want to sign up for the newsletter, get a chance to win the t-shirt.
Give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
Hey, I'm entitled to see movies that don't suck. ever tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking of getting.
I was not expecting that. After you've scrubbed all the floors in Hyrule, then we can talk about mercy. Take him away. No!
You are going to die.
Enough. My ship sails in the morning. I wonder what's for dinner.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join your host Cam Sully each week as he chats with special guests to discuss many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
And now we will continue. We were going to go on to our next segment, and that segment is our favorite parts.
Man, probably the elevator scenes. Like anytime anyone is like in the elevator, just unloading on each other, just like, whoa, where's this going? And you're laughing uncomfortably with it.
Right. Yeah, the elevator scene is pretty cool. So I did really love the score. I like it's not a favorite part. I just wanted to throw that out there. There was what you call it. I've got my notes and I'm trying to decipher them right now. So one of my favorite parts is when he took the cab from the granny, when he said so it's just the way that he took the cab. So there's an old lady. She's got some Christmas presents or something. She's about to get in the cab. Then the executive, Bill Murray, who is he playing again? He's playing Francis Cross or Frank Cross.
Yes.
Frank Cross comes up to
her. Yeah, never trust a guy named Frank.
Frank comes up behind her and he says, "Ooh, looks like you dropped something." And he turns around. He gets into the cab while she's kind of like when she's looking on the ground to see what she dropped. And then he's like, "Bye, Granny, bye."
Jeez.
So that's a horrible thing to do. And I really
it is a dark comedy, guys.
There's something about the cruelty in that makes it funny. What's your next favorite part?
Man, I guess probably some of the other ghost segments, especially I mean, Carol Kane's really on fire on this as Christmas present. I just feel like she has some good lines.
Right. Carol Kane was absolutely fabulous. I would have to echo that. But before I want to move to the ghost. I want a shout out to the losing it at lunch. So this is before the ghost comes, and this is after he gets a visit by Lou and so he's having visions and whatnot. So he's seeing stuff. So one of the things he sees is that he sees one of the waiters are on fire, and he's like, yes. "Oh no, he's on fire! He's on fire!" And he's so he throws some water on the dude, and then he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you." He said, I think he said, "You look like Richard Pryor" or something like that, or I thought you were Richard Pryor. I think he said something like that. I know.
There was something. It goes over everyone else's head, but right. At the time,
it's something that he says that references when Richard Pryor set himself on fire while he was freebasing. So, and then as he's going outside, he falls down and he gets back up. It's just that whole thing when he's losing it at lunch. It's one of the heights of comedy, and I truly enjoyed that. What you got? Yeah. What else you got?
Definitely Alfre Woodard. Like, she's really good at being the straight person in here, just saying, "Hey, you guys are being awful. Don't treat my son that way."
Right.
It doesn't work for you.
So another. So this isn't a favorite part. I'm just throwing it out there. The, it's the old Christmas presents they was giving out. Like, so one of the presents that was given was a pack of Ginsu knives. So I remember that was everywhere in the 80s. That you would see the Ginsu knife
That was a
advertisements
thing, yeah.
everywhere. And then the dude was getting like a VCR for a Christmas present. I thought how quaint that was, even though like at the time it was like $1,000 or something like that. But it's so quaint now. but actually, moving to my next favorite part is the part we talked about. So the Ghost of Christmas Present, she's beating the shit out of Xavier Cross. So
Yes.
she's beating
Him his comeuppance finally.
she's pulling his lip, she's punching him in the face, she's hitting him with a toaster. She's doing the most, and it's funny because she's petite, and yet it seems like she has a mean right hook, as they might say in the boxing business. So yeah, I love that about her, that like her tiny little voice, her tiny frame, and she's just crushing it. So that's another one of my favorite parts.
Totally. And it's just funny how it's like you're laughing at awful things he does, and then you're laughing even harder when bad things happen to him.
Right.
Oh, but I can understand that probably people didn't know what to expect. I guess I don't know how it was marketed. I'm sure the trailer might have been misleading, even though Bill Murray has a knack for playing characters who are rude but redeem themselves later. So I don't know.
No, I think that the trailer is exactly what the movie is.
That's wild. I don't know why people didn't get it.
It's a lot of times, like, I don't do this on this show, but like there's another podcast I listen to, and one of the things that they do is that they get into like what the other movies that were out at the time. So maybe it was a competition that kind of did it for this movie, and not necessarily the quality of this particular movie. And
Gotcha.
that podcast is called Not a Bomb Podcast. If you want to check that out, ladies and gentlemen.
Love those guys. Yep.
Oh, you do listen. Awesome. Because I talk about at least every other podcast. So
yep. Troy and Brad, I never know where they're going to take it, and they always have me in suspense.
Right. And
you sound like you didn't enjoy it.
I definitely appreciate the insight that they give on like why a movie might have failed. So I didn't really look into it with this
even
movie.
infamous movies they'll take, and it's like, well, there's a reason people didn't like it, but it's not the one that's on record. Like this movie was well intended, but it came off as an exploitation film or a PSA ad that wasn't very well written, you know?
Right. So what's the next part? We got two more parts.
Oh, what was my next favorite part? Probably one of the various other dinner table segments, like near the end. It is a slow burn kind of comedy. So, I mean, you kind of can't have any scene without the whole movie, but I definitely feel like there's some funnier parts as he's closing off and he's just making up for all the bullshit he's done. He still gets in his typical Murray quips.
Right. Are you talking about the speech at the end, or are you just talking about just anything?
The speech, as well as some of the other apologies he makes.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I have for one of my last favorite part was the speech at the end. I really like the design of the Ghost of Christmas Future. Like when Cross opens up the robe, it's like a bunch of like dead souls or something inside of a rib cage, and then the face itself, it was a TV screen that was showing. It was showing Cross different scenes, so it was a TV screen with dead souls for a body. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, the speech at the end, which was like totally off the rails, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more at the trivia. But yeah, it was both good and bad, right? To me, it was like I can appreciate the improvisational nature of the speech, and it was funny, but I would have liked to see what it looked like had it been scripted, because you can kind of tell that Bill Murray is kind of going on a riff right there. It's not good when you could tell that he's going to riff, but at the same time, it was still funny. So just because of the backstory of that particular scene and the fact that it sort of works and it's still funny, that that makes it one of my favorite parts. And then it's like at the end, he's like talking to the theater audience and he's telling people to, all right, let me hear you sing on the left side. Okay, let me hear you sing on the right side. Okay, all right, just the fellas. Okay, all right, you're not sounding loud enough. All right, just the ladies now, just the ladies. So that was pretty cool. I really like that. Every time I see that, I really want to see how that works in the theater. If it ever shows up in a movie theater, I need to go to the theater to see how that would work.
It would be interesting to see this in a theater nowadays with people.
Yeah, especially if it's a packed theater, or even if it's like a halfway loaded theater. I really want to see the audience participate at the end of the movie when like Bill Murray's acting as chorus director, right? So yeah, those are our favorite parts. Now we can go on to the next segment, and that segment's going to be the trivia. This is Zoe again. I want to jump in and let you know that me and Cam Sully, my incredible guest, had a great conversation, but we also had a time crunch situation. So he's going to be with me to read some of the trivia, and I'm going to finish up the trivia and the critics' thoughts all by my lonesome, because that's how time works. Now, back to the show. Got the top 10 trivia here. Filming began in 1987 with Christmas approaching. Director Richard Donner asked if the production could have Christmas Day off, but Paramount Pictures executive refused, insisting that filming should continue on Christmas Day. However, Donner outwitted them. At the end of the day, on December 24th, he fired the entire cast and crew. 2 days later, on December 26th, he rehired everyone. The break allowed the cast and crew members to spend Christmas with their families. So sometimes you gotta stick it to the studios.
Yeah, very sneaky, but I never would have expected that. That's wild how they just wanted everyone to just soullessly just plug away. Oh, you don't have lives.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I had no clue, but apparently Bill Murray and director Richard Donner did not like working together at all. Lots of on-set tension. Film critic Roger Ebert, who did not like the film, asked them in an interview at the time if they had any disagreements. And he asked Bill Murray himself, and he said, only a few, every single minute of the day. There could have been a really, really great movie. The script was so good. There's maybe one take in the final cut film that is mine. He made it so fast. It was like doing a movie live. He kept telling me to do things louder, louder, louder. I think he was deaf.
Well,
Man.
When I look at it, I think they both have something to blame, because like in this statement, he says that it's such a great script, but at the same time, he kept going off script. So if it's such a great script, why do you keep going off script? And that was one of the frustrations that Richard Donner had. And oh snap, I'm messing with my chair, and I'm short now. And there we go. And the other thing is that Richard Donner is not really known for directing comedies, so he may have been struggling with knowing what was funny and what was not. He had comedy writers and he had comedy actors, but he himself was probably struggling with how something was funny. So I think they both share some of the blame. So
yeah, no, I totally concur. It's just they're too close to it, and if they do something different, they're like, oh, it must not be great. It's like, stop.
Right. So when the Ghost of Christmas Present, that is Carol Kane, grabbed Bill Murray's lips, he tore it so badly that filming was halted for several days. So actually, I added more to this. I'm not sure. Oh, I see what I did. I added, it's like I added it two separate parts. So actually, there's another part where it says, Carol Kane, she was getting upset having to rough up Bill Murray in their scenes together. So Donner and Murray told Starlark that Kane would often break down on the set, spending 20 minutes crying before filming could resume. And
man.
Yeah, so I didn't know about that. That's pretty rough. Like, she had a rough time like attacking Bill Murray, and it didn't have that, like, it says Murray didn't want her to pull punches. When the script called for Kane's character to hit Murray, he insisted she actually hit him. It got to the point where The inside of Murray's lip got split open when Kane pulled on it too hard. Shooting had to pause for several days for Murray's lip to heal. So yeah, she was actually beating him up. I don't know if she actually hit him with the toaster, but she had a really hard time striking Bill Murray. Like she couldn't, like, cause I think, wasn't she on Saturday Night Live? I think she was, I have a feeling that they were both on Saturday Night Live.
I think she did do some guest spots, I think.
Yeah. So, and it's that hitting people is not her thing. Apparently she's not, she doesn't want to be a physical person. So she's asked to do that here. And she had a rough time with it. So that's where she strikes me as a very emotional person. So, that's an interesting bit of trivia. So grab the next one.
Oh my word, we got more trivia. So Bill Murray falling on his way out of the restaurant was unscripted and a legit accident, as evidenced by the reaction of the actor playing the waiter and his feet as he falls. Apparently, it was due to the stairs still being wet after splashing the waiter with water that caused him to lose his footing. I guess that's some karma.
Yes, it is. That was instant karma. That was exactly what I was thinking. It's like I didn't realize that. Obviously, nobody realized that he fell for real. So and I don't know if throwing the water on the waiter was improvised or if that was part of the script. But let's say that it was part of the script. If it was part of the script, then it's karma on the character, even though it wasn't done on purpose. And then if it's Bill Murray improvising, then it's karma on Bill Murray for just improvising and throwing water and slipping on the mess that he created. But I feel like it's part of the script because it works so well. And if it's not part of the script, if it's improv, then that means Bill Murray is a genius. And being a genius, he has a hard time working with Richard Donner, who is a genius, but not in a comedic way.
Right?
The leader of the street musicians insulted by Bill Murray is Paul Schaefer. The others are Miles Davis, David Sanborn, and Larry Carlton. Elaine May did an uncredited rewrite on the script. In a 1988 interview, Bill Murray praised May, quote, "She really has a major coconut on the top of her head. It sort of turned out to be her movie. She took the script home one night and rewrote the whole thing. One night." So that's Bill Murray praising Elaine May, who rewrote the script for this movie, Scrooged. And my question is, if you loved it so much, why was there so much improvisation? What is the deal? Why were people confused about what you were saying out of your mouth? These are all just private thoughts. I guess geniuses can't be contained by a script. There are many references to Free Africa throughout the movie, including a poster on the wall in Grace's house, as well as a sticker in the production room. This was a subliminal political humanitarian reference to apartheid controversy, which was taking place in South Africa at the time the movie was being shot. And I remember those times. There was a lot of talk about the apartheid in South Africa. There were a lot of protests, a lot of political speeches. It was a whole thing. It was a thing that was going on in the 80s. In the television show within the movie, one of A Christmas Carol's selling point was that it will feature the Solid Gold dancers as the Scroogettes. The movie would mark the small screen dance group's final aired performance, as Solid Gold from 1980 had been canceled the previous July. So this movie came out, what did I say? Did I say 1988? 1988. Yeah, so this movie came out in 1988. So that means Solid Gold, if it started in 1980, it's been on for around 7 years. It was a really popular show. I remember watching Solid Gold. I would watch some of it because I was a kid. And as a kid, I didn't want to watch people dancing. I would watch a little bit of it and then I would find something else to do if I couldn't, because it's like by the time Solid Gold came on, it felt like there was nothing else on TV. But I remember it being really popular. Finally, the names of the Christmas television shows from the IBC network, of which clips were shown, were Scrooge, Father Loves Beaver, The Night the Reindeer Died, and Bob Goulet's Old-Fashioned Cajun Christmas. The network's promotional slogan for these television shows was, "You'll love it." Yule spelled Y-U-L-E. Get it? Get it? You'll love it? Get it? I got it. I got the joke. All right, that's it for the trivia. And next we'll talk about what the critics thought. So the critics gave it 71%. Audience had it at 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can talk. IMDb Reviews has it at 6.9 out of 10. So Sheila Benson from the Los Angeles Times wrote, "It's not a bad notion for a satire comedy, and this one begins well, but then veers entirely out of hand until it's as overinflated as its own Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, and as funny as a mugging." You know, I disagree. I think I liked it a little bit better than Sheila Benson. And here's the thing, it's comedy of all the arts, I feel like it's the most subjective of arts, because the goal is to make you do something involuntarily. And when it doesn't happen, it can be disappointing, and it's not going to happen for everybody. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune wrote, "On balance, Bill Murray's lazy humor carries the movie up until his genuinely sweet relationship with an old girlfriend." So I'm confused about what he's trying to say. I know he liked it. Like he is a fresh tomato on here, but I think it's kind of it's a soft fresh tomato, if that makes any sense. So it's a not quite rotten tomato. It's like, it's a little soft, but you'll still eat it. It's that type of tomato. So I guess he's saying that or maybe this is some kind of typo, because as it is written, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it says that Bill Murray's humor carries the movie up until his genuinely sweet relationship with an old girlfriend. So is he trying to say that he liked the movie until it got to the relationship parts, or is this a typo? I'm leaning towards this being a typo. I'm not saying I typed this incorrectly. As a matter of fact, I cut and pasted it. So I cut and pasted it from Rotten Tomatoes. This is what they wrote. It's their mistake. I didn't do it, if it is indeed a mistake. Up next, we have Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Cincinnati Reader. He wrote, "Tacky in the extreme, this self-congratulatory 1988 film is an exercise in hypocrisy, indulging every form of Christmas exploitation that it pretends to attack, and many of the laughs are forced." Yeah, it's definitely extreme. It's self-congratulatory, I guess, maybe. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Is it an exercise in hypocrisy? Let's think about this. I don't know. I don't know if it's being hypocritical. I don't know what the hypocrisy to which he refers. I don't see it. It's not evident to me. It's not obvious. I'm not seeing the hypocrisy. The movie's message is about, it's a Christmas story. So it's always about putting aside your selfish pursuits and try to enrich somebody else's life. That's what the meaning of Christmas is, trying to enrich other people around you. And I think that by the end of the movie, that's basically what happens with the evil TV executive, Francis Cross. So I don't know if I don't see the hypocrisy here. Maybe I should read the whole review, but I probably won't. Moving along, Kathy Burke of the United Press International wrote, "It would be hard to improve upon the classic after all, and Scrooged not only sticks to the Dickens plot, but makes it believable as a modern fable. But the more difficult part of Scrooged is its modernization, the colorization of Dickens, if you will." I can understand her saying modernization, but I think it's a mistake to refer to as a colorization, because Charles Dickens and the people of that era didn't live in black and white. Yeah, I know we see them in black and white a lot of times, but they didn't live in a black and white world. They lived in a world of color. So I don't know if I would express this as a colorization of Dickens, but seeing as how it's kind of hard to make it a modernization, I don't know if it's difficult. I appreciate the creativity of making this into a modern fable. I like the updated version of the Charles Dickens fairy tale. So that is it for what the critics thought.
Man, so much fun.
Right. So finally, Scrooged is of this recording available on streaming. That's it for today. In a fortnight, we'll be back with another exciting movie from yesteryear, and we'll be joined by the classic, lovely Autumn Groob from Autumn's Oddities to talk about the 1999 classic, The Mummy. You can follow us.
Oh.
Yeah, the Mummy, the one with Brandon Fraser, that one. You can follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, or Threads at Backlook Cinema. It's all under one name now. Isn't that awesome? If you post on, it makes it easier when you don't have different names for different social media platforms. If you post on any of those platforms, I will respond. Maybe not in a timely manner, but a response will be forthcoming.
Eventually.
Eventually. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. So, Cam, do you have any additional plugs?
You can hear us also on The Film Strip, Not a Bomb, Cinema Psyops, and Munson's at the Movies. Down to collaborate with anyone else here. Let's keep the Radio 2.0 days that are podcasts going. Absolutely.
So one last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. I know the name of the show. I can do this. And I know that you've enjoyed our guest, Cam Sully, so please listen to the Jacked Up Review Show podcast. Thank you, Cam. I really appreciate you showing up.
Anytime, man.
Believe me, it's
so much fun.
Yes. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.